An international manhunt continues for the Strasbourg Christmas market shooter. 29-year-old Sharif Shekat still on the run 2 days after the attack that's now left 3 people dead and others fighting for their lives. British Prime Minister Theresa May survives a no-confidence vote against her. She's now back to work on Brexit at an EU summit today in Brussels. And our Jerusalem correspondent takes you to a series of recently discovered tunnels from Lebanon built by Hezbollah. Thank you for joining us here on France 24 this hour. I'm Jeannie Godula in Paris. Well, the Eiffel Tower went dark last night to pay tribute to the victims of the Christmas market attack in Strasbourg. A third person has now died from injuries sustained on the day of the attack, with 5 others still fighting for their lives. Peter O'Brien reports.
A city in shock and mourning. People in Strasbourg have lit candles for the victims of a deadly shooting.
It's important to have a period of mourning, to remember the victims and to say that what happened isn't trivial. It should never be just another newspaper story.
On Tuesday night, a man opened fire with a handgun and stabbed passers-by in the city centre before escaping the scene in a taxi.
I have spoken to the police chief, who told me that as long as the terrorist has not been neutralized, we must be careful.
The government has raised the country's terror alert status to the highest level.
I would like to express, like all those who spoke before me, my very great sadness and my very great anger which should be expressed calmly in the face of this terrorist attack.
At one point after the attack, authorities believed he could have crossed the border into the town of Kehl, but a French-German police operation found no trace of him. Meanwhile, 4 people close to him were detained for questioning. On Thursday, schools, theatres and other establishments will be open in Strasbourg, but the Christmas market, which is the biggest in France, will remain closed. At other Christmas markets across the country, additional anti-terror security patrols are being deployed.
Well, the man named as the Christmas market attacker is Sharif Shekat, a 29-year-old from the city of Strasbourg. Brian Quinn has more details on the suspect who's still on the run.
A man well known to authorities for his criminal history, Sharif Shekat was born in Strasbourg. By the time of Tuesday night's shooting, the 29-year-old Frenchman had already racked up an extensive record of arrests and convictions in multiple countries.
He has 27 convictions on his criminal record for breaking common laws, the vast majority committed in France, but also in Germany and Switzerland.
One of 7 children from a family with Moroccan roots, Shekat's criminal career began at an early age. He was known to police at age 10, his first conviction at just age 13. Amid scores of run-ins with law enforcement, Shekat would earn 2 prison sentences in France and 1 in Germany. It's in prison that he's believed to have been radicalized. In 2015, Shekat was added to the French government's national security watch list, known as Fiche S.
They first noticed he was practicing radical Islam in prison, but only in terms of worship. He never showed signs of committing radical acts, and it was only for this reason that he was followed.
In 2016, Shekat was caught on CCTV security footage as he burglarized a pharmacy in Germany. That crime earned him 27 months in German prison, a sentence which was cut short by authorities in order to deport him back to France. The morning before Tuesday's attack, a neighbor filmed French police as they sought Shekat once again, this time in connection with a murder near Strasbourg last summer. But the suspect was not at home.
Meanwhile, the ongoing manhunt has pushed the French government to urge Yellow Vest protesters not to take to the streets again this weekend. The last 4 consecutive Saturdays of riots have seen cars torched, shops looted, and graffiti on monuments like the Arc de Triomphe. Well, that comes as a Yellow Vest protester was killed overnight after being hit by a truck near the southern French city of Avignon. This latest death of a 23-year-old man was the 6th during the nationwide road blockades and protests, all of which appear to have been accidents. And British Prime Minister Theresa May is in Brussels today, less than 24 hours after she won a no-confidence vote against her. May won that vote, 200 Conservative MPs to 117, but that is a narrower margin than expected, and it came only after she said she would step down before the next general election in 2022. May is at the EU summit today trying to retweak her Brexit deal to make sure it passes at home.
A close shave for Theresa May, but she's not safe yet. More than a third of her MPs voted no confidence in her. Although she survived the challenge, the mutiny means Parliament's in deadlock over Brexit.
The majority in the House of Commons is not something she can call on support for, and she can barely get a majority in her own party. So there's no way she can go back to the EU and get a better deal for Britain.
The Prime Minister already cancelled a vote in Parliament on her deal, the fruit of 2 years of negotiations with the EU, realising it would be heavily defeated. Now she's headed back to Brussels to seek what she's called legal and political assurances on the most controversial part of the deal, a policy to prevent a hard border between Ireland and Northern Ireland. She's looking for pledges from EU leaders on the nature and timeframe of this backstop. But the Northern Irish DUP, which props up May's government, strongly opposes an arrangement which can only be terminated with the EU's consent, rather than by the UK unilaterally.
Our focus has been on the withdrawal agreement and the changes that need to be made to it to get our support and the support of many other colleagues across the House of Commons. I don't think this vote really changes very much in terms of the arithmetic on that, and that's our concern.
EU leaders have said that although they have no intention of changing the agreement itself, they're open to providing clarifications. If what May brings back home still doesn't satisfy, she could face a cross-party parliamentary vote of confidence.
UN Chief Antonio Guterres is leading a last-minute truce in the war in Yemen. International pressure is mounting to halt the fighting between the Iran-linked Houthis and the government backed by Saudi Arabia and its military allies. The conflict has triggered what the UN has called the world's worst humanitarian crisis, with 14 million Yemenis now on the brink of mass starvation. The key sticking points now in the negotiations in Sweden seem to be over the key port of Hodeida and the airport in the capital, Sana'a. Luke Schregel told us more from those talks in Rinbo.
Well, it's the final day of Yemeni peace negotiations and consultations here in Sweden with UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres in attendance. Now, what we saw on late on Wednesday evening was certain developments moving forward, certainly announcements from the Houthi delegation. What they came out to say fairly late in the day was that there had been advances made with certain propositions, certainly involving the reopening of Sana'a airport, that they would accept internal flights going either to the southern Sayun airport or Aden, both held by the government for inspections before they would be allowed to leave the country that way. We also saw potential moves forward on the economy and the embattled port city of Hodeida. When it comes to Hodeida, they accepted a UN proposal that both sides would withdraw their forces from the city and later the area itself. Also, that the port itself could be getting back into operation with the funding and the money and the proceeds from its operation going to the central bank. That would be an effort to shore up the crumbling economy and to pay civil servants. Now, of course, negotiations still ongoing, consultations still continuing right down to the wire now. We're expecting a press conference shortly, and we will, of course, be bringing you all the latest that we have.
Luke Schregel there reporting from Sweden. Now, a high-speed train crash in Turkey has left at least 9 dead and close to 50 hurt. The 6:30 a.m. train hit another railway car that then crashed into a pedestrian overpass not far from the capital, Ankara. The high-speed train's driver was among the dead. And a shooting attack near a West Bank settlement has left at least 2 Israelis dead, critically wounding 2 more. That is the latest in a violent week there that began with a shooting outside a West Bank settlement on Sunday, resulting in the death of a baby who was delivered prematurely following the attack. It continued with the killing of 2 Palestinians wanted in that and another attack on Israelis in the West Bank. Well, that comes as for the first time ever, Israel has discovered a tunnel running into its territory from Lebanon. That tunnel was dug over a number of years by the Lebanese Shia group Hezbollah. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has ordered a new military operation dubbed Northern Shield to search for more tunnels, with 3 being found so far. Our Jerusalem correspondent Iris Mackler reports.
1.8 metres high and several hundred metres long. Hezbollah tunnels dug from Lebanon, unearthed for the first time. They're as sophisticated as those Hamas digs into Israel from the Gaza Strip. Israel's military says that's no coincidence.
From 2014, we understand that Hezbollah has learned from the Hamas and the Operation Protective Edge, and we started to suspicious that somehow we will have attacking tunnels in the northern border too.
The Israeli army has been monitoring these tunnels for several years.
We decided when to expose those tunnels that we knew about them for the last few years. We wanted that the technologies will be precise exactly where is it.
The discovery was no surprise to Israelis living nearby.
People heard that someone making holes in the ground, and go and speak with the security force. And now it's discovered they have the technology.
Israel's army is using new seismic sensors to detect the tunnels. But it wants to go further. It plans to extend a wall built around part of Metula all the way along Israel's border with Lebanon. The wall will be built very close to homes here, including that of Michael, whose house backs directly onto Lebanese territory.
I won't feel more secure when there's a wall there. Personally, I don't see the reason for there to be a wall there here in Metula. We have a fence and the army is constantly here anyways.
Benjamin Netanyahu, who is also Israel's defence minister, has had political problems over the past few weeks. Critics accuse him of being weak against Hamas in Gaza. With Operation Northern Shield, he's trying to reinstate himself as the guarantor of Israel's security a few months ahead of elections.
In the U.S., Donald Trump's former lawyer, Michael Cohen, has been sentenced to 3 years in jail. That's for a series of crimes linked to the U.S. president. Now, Cohen's legal team pleaded for leniency given his cooperation, but the judge said Cohen is a lawyer and should have known better. Erin Ogunkeye has more.
He once said he'd take a bullet for Donald Trump. He now suggests it's not his life he ended up sacrificing for the president, but his liberty. Michael Cohen, Donald Trump's former personal attorney, was sentenced to 3 years in prison on Wednesday for a string of crimes implicating the U.S. president. Among his offenses, violating campaign finance laws, lying to Congress, and making payments to silence 2 women, including adult film actress Stormy Daniels, who claimed they had affairs with the president. Cohen apologized to the court for covering up what he called the president's dirty deeds, blaming his actions on weakness and blind loyalty. Michael Avenatti, Stormy Daniels' lawyer, said the country should be thankful to his client for allowing the truth to come out.
We will not stop until the truth is known relating to the conduct of Donald Trump. Let me be clear. Michael Cohen is neither a hero nor a patriot. He lied for months on end about his criminal conduct and the role of the President of the United States.
Cohen's sentencing stems from guilty pleas in 2 separate cases. In one case, brought by special counsel Robert Mueller, Cohen admitted to lying about negotiations on the construction of a Trump Tower in Moscow and the extent of the president's involvement in the discussions. In the second case, he pleaded guilty to financial crimes and paying hush money to 2 women, a move prosecutors say the president himself had ordered. Michael Cohen's prison sentence is the longest to be imposed, stemming from Robert Mueller's investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 election.
Well, Michael Cohen has been ordered to pay $2 million in fines and restitution and has until March 6 to surrender to the authorities. We'll leave you with that. Thanks so much for watching France 24. Don't go away. I'll be back in about 15 minutes with more headlines.